All right, welcome back to America's Voice Live. Thank you for being here today. The Biden-Harris administration has continuously violated its promise not to raise taxes on those making below $400,000 a year. It's happened over and over again. In its whirlwind of COVID actions, they lowered the reporting threshold for gig workers and regular Americans selling goods online from $20,000 to $600, meaning that a single sale of college textbooks on eBay or a casual transfer of funds between family or friends would generate a 1099-K, forcing taxpayers to sift through piles of unnecessary paperwork, a headache, a nightmare. It's since been moved back up to $5,000, but that's still too low. You sell a used car, and that's the way you sell it? What a headache. Many aren't even aware of the change, putting them at risk for failing to report and putting them at odds with the IRS. Here with me to discuss this is the Vice President of Research for the National Taxpayers Union Foundation, Damian Brady. Damian, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. It's great to talk with you again.
So $5,000 is not even a good used car. $5,000, could be a whole host of run-of-the-mill things, ordinary things, a yard sale, an auction of household items, just nothing in particular of value and not anything you would pay tax on. You don't pay tax when you sell a used car, but in this administration, boy, they love to figure out a way to tax everything you do every time you do it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, this is a very, very confusing tax form. And the problem is that millions of people are going to end up getting this form. It's going to be the first time they've seen a 1099-K form. It's also known as a Venmo form because any app like Venmo or other payment systems like PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay, eBay, if you cross this threshold, they're going to report their transactions of their customers to the IRS, and the taxpayer is also going to get a copy of this. But one concern here is that not all the information that's going to be reported on the 1099-K form is taxable. For example, if you're getting Venmo'd from your family after splitting a check for a restaurant meal, or if you're getting Venmo'd from your roommates to cover rent, that's not income, but it's going to show up on there. Or, as you noted, a college student selling the used textbooks, or anybody just using eBay as an ongoing garage sale is going to be impacted by this. And the problem is that not all these transactions are taxable. And so the IRS suggests that you go back and research the original price of anything that you are selling, and then document the difference in between. So a big risk here is that people are just going to have to spend a ridiculous amount of time to labor over these forms, figure out what's taxable, or they may end up paying out of pocket for tax advice from a professional to help figure this out. And a worse risk is that just a lot of people, out of confusion and fear of the IRS, are going to end up reporting more in income taxes than they really should.
Right. They end up erring on the side of caution, costing themselves money. This is just one of the many things going on that people aren't aware of. There's this other thing called the corporate, what do they call this? The Corporate Accountability Act, where every LLC in America has to report their actions for the year, which is another headache. I mean, it's the regulations in this country, Damian, that are targeting the average guy, the average woman, the average small business, the average college kid just selling something like you said, college books. He's done with 4 years. Here's books. He sells them, gets $5,000-$6,000 for the books, and you're on the hook, and people don't even know it. And then you get that nasty gram in the mail from the IRS. I mean, nobody needs this kind of pressure. Too much regulation. Regulation nation. I think regulation without representation is worse than taxation without representation. I truly believe that. How do we clean this up?
Well, thankfully, the House of Representatives is working on Representative Carol Mills' Venmo bill, which would scrap the ARPA, the threshold set under the American Rescue Plan Act, and restore the original threshold so you wouldn't have to worry about a 1099-K form, a Venmo form, unless you had 200 transactions and a total of over $20,000. And so hopefully they will continue to work on that because, Americans are already dealing with inflation and higher prices for so many goods. They shouldn't have to worry about a very confusing tax form. And another point here is that the IRS has already delayed implementing this threshold for 2 straight years, and they've determined that next year that despite the law saying the reporting threshold for the Venmo form is $600, they just picked $5,000 and said we're gonna implement it this year at $5,000. But that's not the law. I can't think of any other instance where the IRS has just decided to change a reporting threshold that's set in tax law. It's Congress is supposed to be writing the laws, and the IRS and federal agencies are supposed to be implementing them. So that's another issue here why the Congress needs to step in and rein in the IRS.
Yeah, we need to clean this up and put taxpayers first in America and stop messing with people. Damien, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.